Hey everyone, welcome back to Two Rivers Tabac Book Club. I am your host Andrew. I'm joined by my co-host Josh today.
Hello, everybody.
What's up? So, we are kind of experimenting with different formats for the book club. In previous episodes, we've kind of gone almost line by line with the events in the book. We're going to try to taper it down a little bit and hit mainly just the main events. And so if we miss something that maybe you think is really important or you wanted us to talk about, feel free to, leave a comment, let us know, and we can certainly address it potentially in another video in the future. But for now, we're kind of just going to focus on the main events of what happened within what we read, and then stuff that we thought was funny or interesting to talk about. So that's kind of what we're aiming for with this. And of course, as always, we recommend that you have read this prior. This is a spoiler episode. If you haven't read The Wind Through the Keyhole yet, please go back and read it before listening to this if you want to avoid spoilers. But this section is going to be the last part of The Wind Through the Keyhole. It's book 4.5 by Stephen King in the Dark Tower series. It's going to be The Skin Man Part 2. Ooh, The Skin Man. It was really short. We're going to try to, talk about as much as we can here, but it was like an hour or two on the audiobook, right? It wasn't very long.
It was barely even over 2 hours, I feel like. I think it was just like an hour and a half around-ish. But either way, it was still pretty good, I felt like. Good ending.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it overall. But,
cool. So,
yeah, go ahead. I can get into it, or if you want to bring something up, go ahead.
No, I was going to let you. You can start a few.
All right, so the first note I made here, obviously, the previous section was Roland telling the story about The Wind Through the Keyhole, the actual story within this universe. And then they wake up in the jail cell. And like one of the first things that Bill, the kid, the young Bill guy who knows who the Skin Man is, talks about is like, what did Merlin eat? And like, did he shit in a hole? Like, where did he shit? And I'm like, this is the first thing. Honestly, though, it's kind of accurate to children because when you tell kids, I feel like when you tell kids stuff or tell them stories, they always ask the most like ridiculous questions about it because they're kids and they don't understand things, so.
Well, the thing is, like, I want to know too. I mean, dude was literally a tiger in a cage for like, he doesn't even know how long. It's been that long. So it's like, what are you eating? Where are you going to the bathroom? Like, how are you doing literally anything? So, like, I can sympathize with the questions. And Roland's just like, oh, geez. like it's just a lullaby. Not a lullaby. It's just a bedtime story.
So where did you think Merlin shit? You think he shit in a hole? You think he shit in his cage?
Let's see. Maybe he couldn't get out of his cage, right? So what he probably did was he probably shit in his cage and then kicked it out. And then maybe licked it up. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe rolled around in it.
But then what did he eat? Because you can't shit unless you eat something with fiber. But he's also a magic being, so I don't know. Well, maybe he... You know what? I just don't know.
Look, you heard it here, kids. You gotta eat fiber in order to shit in your tiger cage properly.
God, I really hope no kids are watching or listening to this. No offense.
Right?
Oh.
The only kid that should listen to this story is young Bill.
Young Bill. He knows what's up. Grew up to be a gunslinger, allegedly.
Yeah.
So as they're like ending up the Went Through the Keyhole story with Bill, so like overall so far, how do you feel like this Went Through the Keyhole fit in this book? The story within a story within a story.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I mean, we talked about it before. I think Stephen King is an Inception enthusiast because he, like you said, did a story within a story within a story. But it's interesting to me because I thought this book, being that it was written after the canonical series, and again, we haven't read all of the books yet. We're reading this in like technical order, right? So we just read book 4. Now we're on book 4.5. We have not read book 5 through 7. And the fact that he wrote this book so much longer past the other books, I thought it would be more focused on like just Roland and him hanging out with the gang, with the quartet. You know what I mean? Because the majority of this book is the Wind Through the Keyhole story. It's not really. I mean, the Skin Man is of course another plot, but it's not very long. You know, if you only had the Skin Man parts, this book would be extremely short. The meat of it is the Wind Through the Keyhole. So I'm interested to see when we read books 5 through 7 if somehow the Wind Through the Keyhole story fits in to maybe events that happen later on. But it's definitely interesting to me that he chose not to focus on the original quartet, because I felt like this book would just kind of be like a nostalgic book for people, right, who've already read the series. But
Yeah, that's also a question I have for people who've already read this series. Is that when Stephen King said he's coming out with this book, was it like, were you guys like, oh, awesome, I get to see the quartet again, and then like it's barely even them, and it's just like, how did they feel? Like they still like it, or people hate it? I mean, I couldn't imagine hating it. I mean, so far it's awesome. So, and if the story was already complete, then maybe they're just like, I'll take what I can get. So,
yeah, definitely. Because I mean, I would think if you're Stephen King and you're writing this book, there's something that you didn't answer in book 5 through 7 that you wanted to address, or you just wanted to have a separate story that's nostalgic for the people who have read, and it's nostalgic for Stephen King. I remember like when we first started this audiobook, there was actually an excerpt in the beginning, you know, or I think in the prologue for Stephen King, where he's like, you know, I'm excited to revisit my old friends, quote unquote, which, you know, would be the quartet. So it's obviously nostalgic for him as well, writing this book after the final book was written so long ago. But yeah, I don't know how it'll tie into the other ones. I'm excited to see if it will at all. But yeah.
yeah.
If
So
not, it was a cool story. You know, if not,
yeah.
it was still a cool standalone story. I wonder if people, like you said, I'd be really interested to hear what people think of it who've already read the canonical series and then read this, because I don't know if maybe they got disappointed because there's not a lot of the quartet just doing quartet things. Like it's a young Roland pursuing the Skin Man, and then it's this Wind Through the Keyhole story. There isn't like a lot where it's adult Roland. So
Yeah. So it's like they finish. So after Roland finishes like telling the story and Bill's asking all these questions, we get like, it's almost like we were woken up from a dream. Like we're just put back into reality almost, to where it's like, all right, back to the Skin Man. And so, what was it? So after uh, it gets into like them, now they got to get all the miners together and figure out how they're gonna set this whole thing. And we know basically that there's this blue ring around their ankles, right around their legs, that shows that they're prisoners once upon a by. And what what also is forgotten up until later in this point was the white mark in this case that Roland dismissed earlier because he thought Bill had enough reliving the past when he was doing his thing. So what did you think about this whole setup situation with getting the miners and having them like be a little bit disrespectful, and then Roland's like, hey, give him some drinks, and then Roland's still young but still taking command, and then like through the process of getting them drunk, eliminating the other miners, finding more out about their situation in the mines, like what was your whole take on that?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, like you said, it is like waking up from a dream, because you kind of have to reorient yourself to the Skin Man story, because it's been so long since we've been in that situation. And yeah, we remember that the plan is to bring the miners in and have young Bill identify who the Skin Man is. And the miners, yeah, being kind of rude. But you learn more about the miners, and I thought it was kind of interesting. Stephen King kind of put this in here. I mean, the salt miners' lives just kind of suck. Like they have a horrible job. They owe a bunch of money to like the owner or something, and they owe so much money to him. Like the owner will like put on this race or whatever, this show, and basically like have them race each other as like a sport for the rich people, and the prize is just getting some credit off of your loans or whatever, so they don't even really get anything out of it.
Yeah.
It's really rough. So I thought that was kind of interesting that he put that in there. I don't know really if it has any real bearing on the story, but I just thought it was interesting because it kind of reminded me of like, I know he's going for the Western theme obviously, but it reminded me of like sharecropping, where slaves were released and then some of the slaves still in the South would do sharecropping, and like yeah, they worked a job and yeah, they were free, but like they didn't really have any money and they made horrible wages, so it was essentially the same thing as slavery, and it kind of just reminded me of that. I don't know if he got inspiration from that for this part of it, because obviously it is part of Western history, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah. And like the start of the Industrial Revolution, to where like some jobs, like they would literally have apartments on plantations or like on factory land.
Yeah.
So they would literally live where they work. And so that's kind of what this reminded me of. But yeah, very shitty life. Very, I would not want to do it. I mean, it's like literally you win this race that could possibly kill you, and some people do die, and like during these events, and all you win is like discounts at the store that he owns.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's so lame.
It's
It's
so
like
bad.
it's like working at your job, right? You're working at your job, and then they're like, hey, we got these fun work games so you can sign up for. You got to pay for it though, and then like you pay to hang out with your coworkers like on a weekend, right? And then if you win, you're like, okay, you get 50% off at our company store, so you can buy like a company hat or some bullshit. And it's like, that's so lame. Why would anyone want to do that?
I know, right?
Or like,
It was kind of funny that it wasn't funny, I guess. It was interesting that he put so much detail in there about the miners, because like he's like, all right, this is the lives of the miners. It's horrible. And then they're like, all right, let's just get past that, and let's identify the Skin Man now.
yeah. So like, I think what Stephen King was trying to show is that you have a group of people who are basically family or like really good friends. They're in this shit together. They understand each other. They trust each other. But one of them is not what they seem.
Right.
And so now he built up a bond of trust with them because they're all in the shit together. And that bond is slowly being broken down throughout finding out who's the Skin Man. So it's like not like a necessarily a plot that he was, I think, really focused on, or what you're supposed to be focused on, but it's like that one thing on the side that's like, it's like Stephen King is so good with characters that he just kind of adds that sense in there to actually make you care more about finding the Skin Man if you didn't already. So
yeah, I can definitely see that. It adds some richness to the situation, a little bit more detail.
yeah. So like I guess like we were talking about earlier, if you're watching this video, odds are you've already read this book. So like the section where Billy like points out who the Skin Man is, and then you realize Roland is so young too, that when he finds out that he should have kept going with Bill when he had him hypnotized about the white mark, would have came in handy earlier, because it would have flew past him if Bill didn't like bring it back up again. So like the guy who has the mark has the blue ring, as well as the others has a big white scar going down through it. And and so what did you think about that whole revelation about, we probably knew it was going to be important early on, but what do you think this had to do with Roland's character development?
Yeah.
Like learning.
it definitely adds more richness to Roland's character where like you see him make a mistake again as a young Roland. The adult Roland probably would not make this mistake. But it's cool to see, kind of similar to the previous book, Wizard and Glass, where he makes a lot of mistakes in that book, and you see how his character kind of becomes who he is, like how he makes these mistakes and learns from them. So this is just another one of those mistakes where it's like, dang, if you would have pressed Bill a little more, then you would have maybe saved two people's lives. Because obviously, he turns into a snake and fucking destroys them. But
Yeah.
no, it's also interesting because it puts in Roland's brain to be more relentless, right? Because the reason he stopped with Bill was like, I don't want to mess this kid's brain up even more than it already has with his dad being mutilated. So it's like this situation tells a young Roland like, hey, you need to keep going, like no matter what, you need to just keep going.
Yeah.
So just another one of those situations where, similar to Wizard and Glass, you can see how these events made him like as relentless as he is as an adult. But what did you think about it?
I pretty much agree. It's kind of like, of course he's young, he's gonna make mistakes. So if we went through this story just like the previous book, if we went through a story of young Roland and the dude literally makes zero mistakes, then it's boring, you know? You want some character flaws. And even Roland in book one had flaws. He was just a badass and he knew how to do all his shit. So for them to actually for Stephen King to actually have him make mistakes like this reinforces that he's still a young gunslinger and he still has a long way to go to when he ends up to where we find him in the first book. So
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's great. And you could take the lead for a sec. I'm looking up the
Yeah.
something real fast. Okay, I found it. Never mind. Okay. So the monster's description earlier in the book, I'm gonna reiterate it. What we were giving in Skin Man Part 1. Long jaws, taller than man, scales instead of skin, long tail dragged behind it, yellow eyes slitted, dark pupils glowed in flat head, mouth trap filled with teeth longer than a man's hand, and stubby legs. So I imagined like a little non-horned demon as character, because like demons are closely obviously related to like snakes and stuff like that. So when we got to this section and we saw him transform, and he would transform into like different animals, and he just chose the snake at the time. So this just shows me that all the different stories where he was like, they said different animals attacked him, was fairly accurate. He just goes, so he can just transform into, I don't know if unlimited animals or just a specific group. But he chose the snake in the final fight. And do you think him picking the snake was the best choice? I mean, he did take out like two people, but do you think he should have picked a different form?
Yeah, I almost wonder if he could have picked a form that, I don't know, had a stronger hide. I guess it's not going to matter if you get shot with us. Supposedly it doesn't really matter. It seems like if you get shot with a silver bullet. But even something fast and like smaller, so you could run away potentially or something. But obviously he chooses to do the snake and just go all out offense. But obviously he didn't know that Roland had a silver bullet. And I guess if he got shot with a normal bullet, it wouldn't matter. But what do you think about... Yeah, it was brutal. The first kill just like shoves the snake head through his throat, basically.
Yeah.
Pretty brutal.
It was insane. There was he was like he went down through his neck hole, and like this head was like coming out the dude's neck, and I was just like, this is badass. Like I want this to be a show, and I want to watch it, but I honestly think no show or movie would be able to do any book series really justice especially probably Stephen King. But I don't know, I could be proven wrong because I mean, Lord of the Rings was badass. So this is like picturing it in my head, and then it's like I picture like a small jail cell. You got people outside the cell. You got Roland and Bill in the cell, and then you got the Skin Man transforming into a snake, and he's all in the jail cell too. So for the Skin Man to pick the snake out of all of them, I guess I don't think it really goes through every single thing it could transform into, but maybe at the time it thought this was the best strat, just because snakes are quick and fast, even though he's big, and he's in a small area with two gunslingers, a bunch of men, and then a sheriff and a couple deputies. So this might have been in his mind the best strat just because snakes are the quickest. But I would be surprised if he honestly thought he was getting out of there alive regardless. Not only because there was one gunslinger, but there was two. So the odds are not in his favor, especially in close quarters. So his best strat, I think what he was doing or was trying to do was trying to get as many bodies around him as possible to kind of use as a shield. And then as a snake, he could like slither around their bodies or through their bodies to get a quick snap at them, at Roland or the other gunslinger, Jamie, to, try to take them out one by one.
Yeah. No, I mean the snakes are obviously lightning fast, so I mean it's not the worst thing to transform into, but gunslingers they're gonna gunsling.
They're gonna gunsling.
But what did you think, I guess, about the final showdown in general? So, like, for me, I was hoping it was someone... Like, I'm cool with it being just this random miner, but I was kind of hoping it would be, like, PV or something, or, like even Bill. If he turned into the Skin Man. It would be insane.
Oh, yeah.
So I was kind of hoping, like, someone they know, or even Jamie. I don't know how Jamie would be the Skin Man. That probably wouldn't make any sense, but, like, PV or Bill, or... Yeah. But
so it's I don't want to say I have mixed feelings over the ending, but so cuz like I like it, but as for it being a specific person, I'm thinking that if it was someone that we knew, it probably would have taken away the impact of the previous story, the Wind Through the Keyhole, cuz that was such a good ending. That maybe King didn't want to top it, or
no, I agree.
Or maybe this is just how he went. Because as the showdown went, I was honestly hoping for a whole lot more carnage than what we got. I mean, we got two dead people, and then Roland. If Roland pulls out a gun, that guy ain't gonna miss. So as soon as he fired and with the silver bullet, you knew it was gonna die. So then he killed the Skin Man, and for me it was a little too quick. I think that's why I gravitate more towards like swords and sorcery rather than like firearms, because like with firearms it's not as dramatic because it's very quick, and with swords you can drag out a lot more emotion and tension, like in like Game of Thrones or like even Wheel of Time to an extent, even though most of it's magic, it seems like. So I feel like just taste wise, I just would have rather it been a little more dragged out and dramatic between Roland and the Skin Man. But knowing that it's like a Western and it's dealing with guns, and especially in the last book, if you remember, this is a little bit of the same complaint we had too when Roland was like fighting what's his face for the
Jonas.
orb.
Yeah.
Jonas for the orb, yeah, and we thought it was a little too quick.
Yeah.
But it's like these are guns, they're not swords. You're not stabbing somebody and then they're slowly bleeding out. No, you're blowing their fucking brains out.
Yes, definitely.
So knowing that, I'm gonna try to make an unbiased opinion and just be like, I liked it. I just wish King would have found a way to drag it out a little more, because after all the anticipation of waiting for the Skin Man to be confronted, when he finally is, it's not that long. So that would be my only thing is what I personally would have wanted. So yeah, that's my
Yeah.
final thoughts. 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. No, I'm definitely in the same boat. I feel like the way he wrote this, it definitely makes it feel like the Skin Man stuff is cool and everything, but it's definitely just a setup to do the Wind Through the Keyhole separate story.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, it's the B plot.
Yeah, it's the B plot. Like, basically, when the Wind Through the Keyhole story ends, he's like, all right, let's just wrap this up. Like, Skin Man dies. We're done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I think he could definitely make it more dramatic. Because, I mean, in the last book, and not to go back to keep going back to Wizard and Glass, but that one scene where they're all having like the standoff, you know, with Jonas and his men, like Keith Burt has his slingshot, and then the other Jonas guy has his knife around his neck, and then the other guy's behind him, and then Roland comes in and he's the last one, and he's behind all of them. Like, I thought that was written really well because, like you said, with firearms, it's kind of hard to be like make it a really long showdown. But I feel like with that scene, he like was able to create like a good amount of suspense, even though it's
that scene
with guns.
Yeah, that scene was really good. The only problem is that you can't do scenes like that all the time.
Yeah, no, he can't do that. Like we can only have so many Western standoffs.
It's basically like you could probably use it max maybe 2 times in a complete series without it becoming like, oh, here we go. You know?
Definitely.
Like, so you would briefly go over the next part?
Yeah. And yeah, if there's stuff before that you want to talk about, just let me know. But yeah, after that, obviously they kill the Skin Man. I didn't write it in my notes, but I just remembered that didn't they have they had like a party afterward or something, like, hell yeah, the Skin Man's dead, and then like it's mentioned that Jamie loses his virginity. I'm like, all right, just had to put that in there. Huh? Yeah, it's very on.
He had to slip it in
on
there.
brand for Stephen King. But yeah, so Jamie loses his virginity. I was afraid Jamie was gonna die because like the snake kills that dude and then he grabs the snake. I'm like, dude, why are you grabbing the snake? Like, shoot it. But luckily Roland shoots it before. Because I was thinking, like, if he grabs the snake's just gonna slither out or like turn around and just bite the shit out of him. But yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, right. Oh, he's safe.
Yeah, he got laid too. So, but yeah. After that, they have the party, and then the sisters from like Skin Man Part 1, the like very large woman and her group, I guess, take in Bill. So it's a happy ending for Bill. He's not just homeless. So
yeah,
he at least gets to stay with them, and then the second part of basically this whole section is just that Skin Man showdown, and then this letter that he gets from his mom, which I felt like did tie into the rest, even though we haven't read book 5 through 7. It was relevant, even because we just read Wizard and Glass and we just read the scene of him shooting his mom. So like obviously this is super relevant. But yeah, go ahead.
I was saying is like I feel that now this book gave a conclusion with Roland's mom. So knowing that, I feel like that was probably the thing King didn't do in the next 3 books. Like it was probably like after book 4 and it was like, okay, that's it. And then maybe it's vaguely mentioned throughout the next couple books during like similar situations or something like that. Of like magic or dreams or whatever. But so I'm assuming this book was probably mainly just made because the Wind Through the Keyhole story, I believe, is actually happened. Maybe not event for event, but is definitely, I feel like, history in Midworld that's just been brought into a fairy tale as time went on, and most of it got forgotten or worded different or whatever. But So I feel like this book was meant to add more history and lore to the universe, as well as conclude the Roland and his mom storyline. So I guess we'll see in the next 3 books if they do end up doing that, because like in the letter, it said that the father didn't really like her or didn't love her. She knew going back to Gilead, Roland was going to kill her. She knew secrets that could probably save Gilead for like a couple more years or a few more years. So they're not really that important. So just let Gilead fall. And that she forgives him. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and Roland got to kiss that big lady with the big old bitties on the mouth twice. I mean, what else do you want in a conclusion?
Yes. It was a very happy ending in general. But yeah, no, I really like this letter, and yeah, this is the part that definitely makes sense as far as like something that Stephen King could wrap up. And it gives a little bit more of like the mom side of the story. Because I feel like in Wizard and Glass and the previous book, we don't really get her side of the story very much. Mainly when we talk about her, it's just like, oh, she's being manipulated by the tall man. She's, committing adultery with the tall man. But she doesn't really get to say her side of it. And this letter really shows, like, she was a good person. Because she knew going back there she would die. And she doesn't like the dad. She doesn't like Steven's, or Roland's dad, so I feel like it made her character more like realistic, I guess, and like more like,
Or sympathetic.
yeah, you're more sympathetic for her.
Likeable.
Yeah, more likable. Like she's not just like like sucks completely.
Well, like at first you're like, oh, fuck Roland's mom,
Yeah.
but then you find out that she's being forced to do it, and then you're like, oh, now I feel really bad.
Yeah.
And then this book kind of concludes, it kind of feel like rounds out her character to where she might have got manipulated, but don't feel too bad because the husband didn't even care for her that much anyway, and she's sorry and she loves her son, and she went back to Gilead knowing that he would kill her, but she went just anyway because that's how much she loves her son. And I'm like, that hits me where I live.
No, yeah, I think in general it's just more realistic to how a mother feels about their children. Like I think most moms would do the same. So
Yeah. And then like, they were afterwards, right? They returned back to the real world, and or the real world quotation marks.
Yeah,
And yeah.
adult Roland and squad.
Yeah, and everyone's just like, "Oh, thanks for the story, Roland, and you're such a good storyteller." And Roland's just like, I can't remember if he said this before he went and told the story, or at this part, but he's just like, every gunslinger needs to know how to tell stories. He's like, I'm not even that good at it. So it's like, damn, if you're not that good at it, imagine other gunslingers who are. It's like it's like holy shit.
Yeah.
So, and then I see that you wrote in here too that in the end, in the high speech, or it was something his mother wrote that she forgave him for it, and that Susanna asked Roland if he forgives himself. So,
and then it ends.
We don't get an answer. I can't remember.
I think he smiles or something like that, but which implies that maybe he does kind of forgive himself a little bit, but we're obviously in Wizard and Glass he doesn't really. But
yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like at the end of Wizard and Glass, he's crying and all this stuff, and Susanna's like, "It's not your fault. You were a kid," and blah blah blah. And Roland's like, "No, it was me. I take full responsibility." And then we go straight to this book. But like he feels better at the end of last book because now he has friends who understand and care and are there to help and support him. So he feels better. But he definitely didn't forgive himself. And then we get to 4.5, and then now it kind of seems like he has but I don't believe it. I think he smiles because he knows even if he doesn't, he still has his friends, there to help and support him. So I don't think it's a smile of like I forgive myself for it. I think it's just a smile of I don't have to bear this burden alone anymore. I got people who care about me.
Yeah.
So I think it's just the ending of the last book reiterated.
Yeah.
So what do you think though? Same thing or?
Yeah, similar thing. I feel like because he, in Wizard and Glass, he didn't forgive himself. I don't know if he's ever really gonna forgive himself. Maybe he will later in the series when we read it. But yeah, I think it's just kind of reiterating that because obviously he would have already known this in Wizard and Glass. He's just telling the story now, but it does give more context to the mom, and it gives more context to his companions. So
Cool.
yeah.
We're uh actually, you want to get to some book club questions?
Yeah.
Just maybe a few.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. What's just one random one I can bring off? Did reading the book impact your mood? If yes, how so?
I think I go through this cycle with all Stephen King books where I go from like, really happy moments where it does make me like, because I really like the relationships. Like you said, he builds really good characters, and I like the way they interact with each other. That always like puts me in a good. But then there's also the scenes of just absolute brutality or like, traumatization, where it's like, oh fuck, or like the miners, where it's like, fuck. Now I'm thinking about slavery and sharecropping. So you go through a roller coaster with him, but I think that's part of why his books are good, right? He evokes like lots of different emotions. What about you?
Yeah. I'd say I'm probably a very emotional guy, so definitely Stephen King's character developments or character points hit me to the core almost all the time. Uh, so I think the part I probably felt the most was when when Bill's dad dies and his mom has to remarry, and he already
Yeah,
got a bad feeling about it, and then Bill's like up at night and then can hear like his mom being beat and them having sex and then her being hit, and I'm just like fuck dude, because now I'm just thinking like there's like this little kid doesn't understand what's going on, but like we know what's going on, and then this also just reiterates that he probably just killed his best friend just to get with this girl he doesn't love, he's just obsessed with. So he thinks he loves, but isn't that what every obsessor thinks? Is that they're in love, but no, they're just obsessed. So that was like those parts like really hit me
yeah,
home. Uh, but another like a better one is like during the whole Merlin interaction with Bill, like made me laugh. I was cracking my ass off because like he's just like he's like, if you're so powerful and so omnipotent, how did the tax man or whatever get you? And then Merlin's just like, oh, I was drunk. and so, and so it's just like, lol. I was like, that's so stupid.
yeah,
But but there's probably a deeper meaning into it. It reminds me of an old Bible story too. So I was just like, oh, that's interesting.
yeah.
So it was like those kind of. I gave a happy one too because I knew like there's the first one was pretty dark.
Yeah, I mean, there's
But
plenty of
so I gave a happy example.
there's both in these stories. Like I really like the scene where this is really simple, but when they were just in the cell with Roland and young Bill, and Roland just brought him like food and like candy and shit, and he's like, "Here you go, you can have whatever you want. Like I'll just tell you a story." Like I just thought it was
Yeah.
wholesome. But yeah, obviously books
Yeah.
are
Could do one more question and then we can like wrap
yeah,
up about with predictions and
yeah.
such.
Let's do it.
So, how does the book's title work in relation to the book's contents? If you could give the book a new title, what would it be?
Man, now I'm trying to think like how the Wind Through the Keyhole fit into like
right?
I don't even know how it fits really. I'm probably not literary build enough to like understand. The only
Well,
keyhole I can think of is the trunk of Kels's trunk, and then
yeah.
I guess the cage. I can't.
Well, I know that Stephen King mentioned like he wrote something and towards the end that like Roland said. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something as like I'm not gonna say that because I actually since I don't remember I don't just want to throw it in. But kind of like what I thought is like the wind through the keyhole is kind of like just something to do with stories, I guess. Like there's so many like every key's like during the wind through the keyhole is like a key can open anything but only open one
Yeah.
thing. So like what would a key in a box represent? So maybe like could represent like words or structures and then like the box containing a story. So it's like or something along the lines of that or maybe just wonder of what's of the unknown. You know, you have a key that can open anything. What are you gonna open? What's on the other side? What do you want to learn, or what do you want to pursue? And how life is like, how life goes on and on. So does the wind. I don't know, just random shit like that. I'd have to I'd have to go back. I should have wrote it down,
Yeah. What he said
but
about
I know there. Yeah, because I know there is something in the book where he does talk about it,
it.
and of course, it's the most one of the most important things, and I can't remember.
It does kind of make
So
me, yeah, now that you talk about that a little more, it does make me think, like, the keyhole to Kels's trunk, that really set everything off, right? Like, he opened the trunk and found proof, or at least close to proof, that, Kels killed Ross, and then, like, the wind from that took him to all those events, right? Almost like when he opened the box and unleashed just this flurry of events that occurred because he did that. But yeah, I'd be interested to hear what Stephen King would say about it. But what would you rename the title if you were gonna rename it?
if I was gonna rename it,
That's a
right on
really
the
tough
spot,
question. But yeah,
is a tough
I'd probably
question.
rename it to "Does a tiger shit in a hole or a cage?"
Yeah, I was about to say, like for a funny title. This probably isn't that funny, but I would just name it Stephen King's The Story Within a Story
Yeah,
Within a
the
Story.
book version of Inception.
Yeah. If but if I was gonna pick like a serious name, it'd probably just be like uh shit. I um
Maybe just the Skin
fuck.
Man, or like the
The
fuck.
what what was what was the morals of like there has to be something that compares both both
I
stories.
know, like some
Like
kind
something has
of
to
connection to like
yeah,
cover both of
this
them.
between yeah, something within the Skin Man and the went through the keyhole. And what is it? Is it protection? As like Roland's protecting Bill as Tim protects his mom?
Yeah,
Would that be
they both.
the
They
thing?
also both kind of go on an adventure, like the hero's journey. He has to go deal with the Skin Man and then protect Bill, like you said, and then Tim has to go on a
Yeah.
journey and protect his mom. But yeah, I don't know.
You know, I think I would. I think I'd name it Once Upon a Buy.
Yeah, I
If I
name it
could. Once
a
Upon a Buy.
palaver, or there and back
The
again,
long
a Hobbit's
palaver.
Tale.
The what?
There and back again, the Hobbit's Tale.
Oh my god. There and
A
back again, a
Tim's Tale,
Roland's
yeah,
tale.
Roland's Tale.
There's a guy at my work, a new guy just got hired. Guess what his name is?
Bilbo.
Roland.
Really?
I'm dead ass. His
He's
name
got
is
to be at
Roland.
least 45.
He's in his 30s.
Damn, really? That's young for a Roland. Wow.
Yeah, I asked him. I was like, "Hey, do your parents read The Dark Tower?" And he's like, "What's that?" He's like, "Okay." No, I think his parents is what he said. It was just some like they just wanted to find a cool name, so they named him Roland.
Okay.
I was like, it's a badass
Yeah,
name.
that's
I didn't
fine.
even hear that. I didn't even know that was a word until I started reading The Dark Tower.
The
So,
only Rolands I've met are like 50 plus. I've never met like a younger Roland. So there you go.
you've actually met a Roland
I've
before?
met people named Roland, mostly
Really?
in Arkansas.
Really? Was it before? Was it before? Oh, yeah, that was way before we read.
Yeah, it's before this
We
book. No,
started
yeah,
reading
I've
this.
met people in
Wow.
real life who like have that name. Yeah.
Cool. So, I know it's gonna be hard to do predictions for the next book because we're both a little bit into the next book
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
So, and it in the summary of the book basically gives the plot away anyway. But all I'm gonna say is, where do you think we got 3 books left? And obviously, at this point, they're definitely not getting to the Dark Tower until the final book. That's called just the Dark Tower. So, what do you think we're gonna gain through this next adventure in the next book? Like, what could possibly be the next step in this quartet's journey?
Like, I guess what events you think in this will tie back to the rest of the series?
Or whatever you
Dude, I
think.
don't
Like, what's the significance of the
I don't
next
even
book, you
dude, I don't
think?
even know. I know like the letter obviously clearly ties into the Wizarding Glass. It might tie in even later on. I wonder if the title will. I wonder if the reason we don't understand why he named it this is because it's relevant later on. I think that would be cool if it's somehow relevant later on. Um, so I guess that'll be my prediction. Is maybe this title does have some significance because I feel like if you're gonna write this book, if you're gonna write this book like 10 years after you wrote the other series, I don't remember how long it was, like 15 years or whatever. I would think you
He
would.
finished it in 2007,
Okay, yeah.
I think.
So when did this book come out? I gotta find out.
I want to say 2015.
Okay,
I
so
want to
like
say.
8 years then. I would think if you're gonna write this book, you would name the title something that is relevant to the original series because you're basically doing like a callback nostalgia book, in my opinion, if you write something like this. And to fill in the gaps, of course, like we said with the letter. But maybe the title will illuminate something later on. But I think like you've said as well, another and I'm sure you're kind of a similar prediction here, but like this story the Wind Through the Keyhole is probably real, and maybe we will encounter stuff later on to show that it was real.
Mhm.
Like maybe we'll see Tim as a gunslinger, or
Yeah,
maybe we'll read about Tim and his exploits or something when they're getting to the Tower
that'd
Tower.
be
Yeah, but yeah,
that'd be cool. They mentioned a few things about Tim in this book, and that like 10 years later, it became the gunslingers came to town, and he joined them, and then became like a legendary gunslinger
yeah,
or
like
something like
maybe
that.
Tim is in like a pair, like another universe, because obviously we're kind of dealing with that theme of like multiple universes. Maybe he's in another world very similar to Midworld, but he's obviously like analogous to Roland. But yeah, maybe when they get to the tower or something, then the dimensions kind of blend a little more, and we do see Tim. But I don't know. What do you think? What are some
Yeah.
of your predictions?
So I definitely think that the Wind Through the Keyhole story. So, like I said, I definitely think it's a lost past history of Midworld, but I also think it's it's like is gonna correlate with the next 3 books in some way. Uh, I guess we'll just have to find out once we read the books. Uh, and then I think at this point, the next book is just probably gonna be uh, mostly to show that Eddie, Susanna, and Jake are capable gunslingers and that they've grown a lot. Because we already know that they're gonna fight wolves of the Kala. What that means, like before we read the summary or before we got in. What that means, we don't know. But from what we've seen so far, they've done a few things together. We've seen them grow a little bit. So this next book is probably just gonna iterate further their development into becoming more like Roland, and that's gonna be, and then they're just gonna continue their path on the beam. So that's basically my prediction.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, we've already started the next book, and I can't wait to finish it. I can't wait to finish Dark Tower, dude. I'm like really, we're in the final stretch.
I know we really are. It's gonna be sad when it's over, but
Yeah,
yeah, it'll be fun to find out how this ends.
cool.
All right.
That's it for me. I like this book.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll take us out here. We appreciate you if you stuck with the whole episode and listened through, all three of you. Thanks. But yeah, like you said, we're gonna start Wolves of the Kala. So we'll start. We've already started reading that. I haven't gotten super far into it. I'm not sure how far Josh has gotten into it, but we'll obviously cover that in another episode. But if you have any comments or want to like or subscribe, that'd be awesome. If there's anything within this book, doesn't even have to be this section, or maybe just within this book in general, that you wanted us to talk about, feel free to leave a comment, and then we can talk about maybe talking about it in the next episode. But we'll see you then.
Yeah, smell you later.